send someone to us.
Yeah,
we like to talk about our values. We've got too many we figured out, and they're not really very memorable, but one of them is my favorite is the universe is not going to hand you a ham sandwich. No one makes you something. You don't just conjure up new age stuff from the universe. So that's a reference to kind of a cliche to new ageism, which is like, oh, I wish I had a ham sandwich. And someone walks along and says, hey, I have this ham sandwich. Do you want it? You know, we got to go out there, we got to work, we got to build things for ourselves and go ask for them and go make them happen. The values of GeniusDen, or the mission of GeniusDen, is three-part. Some of you vision or purpose. We seek to be a force multiplier. So the things that we do, we want to have a big impact and be able to have a multiple return. We seek to bring the future into the present. So it's kind of cool if you're a realtor in a real estate office, but it's really cool if you have a completely new and innovative way of doing a piece of real estate that makes it more efficient, effective, faster, better, saves money, makes money, drives profit. So that's what we're really excited to do, those kinds of conversations, which brings us to conversations like NextSeed and Younggro doing things in the future. The third thing that we really seek to do here is interrupt cycles of poverty. And that can have a lot of meanings. It can be working with children and poor children, which is what we like to do and focus on. It also can be, hey, here's how we've been doing it, and the way we've been doing it has been restrictive. It has held us back. It hasn't been as optimized as it can, especially given the universe of other technologies that wrap all around us. So ways to interrupt cycles of poverty might be, in our case, crowdfunding, where now you can reach out to your friends and family and the folks that you know. You as an investor don't have to be a qualified zillionaire in order to be an investor in deals that you like, believe in, want to get behind and support, both financially and for the other bottom lines, like for your moral purpose and your values. So with that, when we found out about Younggro, we were really excited, came in, had a great conversation, had some really cool connections, and he's already made some super introductions to Gardere, which is a great law firm here that none of us in the room can probably afford, but their goal is to bring us up to a level where we can afford their level of expertise and or refer to other folks that we know. So we've got a future conversation, hopefully like this one, with Gardere. Younggro has successfully completed the first nationwide crowdfunding campaign that's never been done in America, and so you're actually going to meet a guy who's literally made history and is famous. And as this thing gets bigger and goes further, you're going to say like, oh yeah, I was in the room one time with Henry Ford. There's some little folks that did some crowdfunding. Some little folks that had car companies that were figuring it out, but like one dude put the people together. And a big part of his success, as I see it, is really great people. His ability to find and identify those, and that's one of the signs of a really successful leader. Someone that knows people and knows how to gather them and bring them and get the best use out of their resources. So among many things he's going to talk about his success, his background. We're talking Ivy League education and Wall Street background, and then his early successes with the kinds of startup companies, the kinds of concepts that work well inside of his context. So save yourself in trouble if it's not a good fit, but he's still got a wealth of information. Jason Croft is going to be interviewing. So the first segment is going to be Younggro telling his story, going through his slides. We're going to kind of move the questions over to Jason. He's going to ask some questions, so hold on to your thoughts. We're going to go back to the slides. And then the last segment, so we got about 20-30 minutes of Younggro, 20-30 minutes with Jason's interview, and then 10-15 minutes of your questions, so hang on to those. If you have something to go deep with, or you want to debate, hold on to that, because we can do that afterwards. We can sit here and we can go deep. And maybe some things that Younggro can't really talk about because of SEC regulations. There's some rails on this conversation. You can raise his hand and flag those kind of conversations for you guys to have one-on-one. So there's some limits to that. This will be recorded. We have a video to show later. We can have available to you later. The slides will be available. If you want to take notes, you're welcome to. But if you're taking notes on the slides, we'll have them on our website. I think that covers it all. In case you don't know me, I'm Joe Payton. This is GeniusDen. This is part of our concept. The idea of genius is not that you're a genius walking in the door. Hopefully you're a genius when you walk out of the door. When you find genius and you create genius by getting great people together and sharing great ideas. With that, this is Younggro Lee.
Thank you guys for being here. First of all, thank you so much for Joe and GeniusDen. So, because honestly, like when I walked in here, I didn't realize it was going to be this level of production. To what Joe said, actually, one of the things about GeniusDen that really attracted me when he mentioned his core value statement was a part of us changing community and sort of helping people escape poverty, things like that. But to that point, literally, I walked in here, my shirt sucked. This is Joe's shirt. Joe literally gives his shirts to other people when they watch the film. So it's a great guy to know. If you are sort of thinking about entrepreneurship or looking to do something, I mean, depending on my slides which I'll go through, just independently, if you want to do something, I think this is such a great community for Dallas. I'll touch briefly on this because when I started this business, and it is related to the legal part, what I was trying to do in the beginning was something that just didn't exist. I mean, I had an idea and I had some foundation based on my legal and professional experience that I thought was going to work. But in the beginning, who knows, right? So the biggest part from that moment to try to get to where we were was basically just having, I don't even know how to say it other than just, I think I can do it. I want to commit some portion of my resources and time to go for it and then just do it. Like when I started, I didn't necessarily have the support that Joe and these communities provide. But I think this is a good opportunity for you guys, if you guys are thinking about that stuff, to do it. And this is also why I want to do this presentation here, because we are trying to grow in Dallas, we are trying to build relationships in Dallas, and we would love to do that through GeniusDen as well. So as Joe mentioned, I'm going to just go through the presentation deck quickly, and then we'll do a presentation, and then I think we can have a more interactive question, which I think is going to be more interesting to you guys. So this is the number one question I get is what is investment crowdfunding? And people get confused by that. When you think of crowdfunding, you think of Kickstarter, right? Indiegogo, GoFundMe, which is all very, very important. That is actually the social momentum that led to where we are today. But investment crowdfunding is actually something very different in the sense that it is not just a feel-good story. It is a legal process. There were prohibitions on how to do it, what to do it, and for the first time, really, we are able to do so. So, if you think about the crowdfunding today, it's really just got two major categories. One is the rewards donation-based crowdfunding that I mentioned, Kickstarter stuff, and then second is investment crowdfunding. As a concept, as an idea, it's actually very simple, right? You have an idea, or somebody has an idea, somebody has something that requires money, and we just happen to pool money together efficiently because now we have the internet, now we have technology. Since the beginning of this, in 2015, there's over $30 billion globally, and by the end of 2025, we're expecting that to be over $90 billion. But this report estimate was actually a couple years ago, so at this point, I think the projections are well over $100 billion. And there's really two simple reasons why you hear more about crowdfunding. And one is clearly the technology part, right? I mean, we obviously over the last 5-10 years have seen a lot of startups, and that's become the sexy thing to do. So there has been a lot of technology advancements. But the more interesting part, at least from my perspective, especially before this, I was a practicing attorney, it's a change in law. Right? It was literally, the technology has been there probably for a while, but by law, you were not allowed to do some of the things that we are doing and other companies are doing. And it's not just US, there's UK, Europe, Asia. It's a momentum, it's a movement, if you want to call it that. And it's something that we, in my opinion, are very lucky to be part of, because this is literally day one of what potentially could be, in my opinion, something that changes the world. So, not to bore you guys too much, but just to set up the context. I mean, if you think of a small business, as I'm just, in this case, sort of aggregating a tech startup and coffee shop or a doggy dog, pet care, or whatever the case might be, everything together. There's really just two ways to finance. One is equity, one is debt. And depending on the situation, you have different options that you can pursue. But for most of us, you basically go to your family and friends, right? Like, I need money, and I can either structure it as like, I'm going to give you a share of my company, or I want a loan and I'll pay you back. In the traditional space, that's basically bank loans, and now you see a lot of different alternative loans popping up. But in general, that's kind of the options we had. What happened, as you guys know, I mean, for me, this is quickly hit some, and I have some of my former colleagues here as well, but I started my legal career in 2007, like Joe mentioned, at a Wall Street firm. And that was literally when, at least in the world that we were living in, things changed. Right? Lehman Brothers went down, and Texas, I think, navigated that process relatively well compared to the rest of the country. But it was a very, very scary proposition for a lot of people in the finance and legal industry. And long story short, credit dried up. Banks weren't lending, investors were scared, people weren't giving money away easily. So what happened after that, there's obviously politics behind this, everything, but again, long story short, there's been an active movement by the federal government and state governments to try to make things better. And how do we get capital to small businesses? Because at the end of the day, even though all the media and everything is dominated by the big companies and big corporations, it's literally small businesses that drive the economy. I mean, even if you think about your daily lives, like comparing the number of big businesses you use and small businesses you use, I would venture to say a vast majority is actually small businesses. And one piece of that was this thing called Jobs Act, or this law called Jobs Act, which was I think, if not the only one of the very few bipartisan laws that actually got passed during the Obama administration. And it's basically a series of laws that permit online fundraising. I mean, crowdfunding is a word we now put to it because people think they understand that term. But it's literally as simple as you can now raise money online, which legally you were not able to do before this series of laws. So I'm going to go through that law in a little basic, and then I'll just show you our website to show you how it actually works in real life. But there's just two pieces of it, which, I do want to mention one thing. Before the national laws happened, individual states were taking matters into their own hands, and that's really why NextSeed is based in Texas. We're headquartered in Houston. We have presences in both Austin and Dallas as well. We want to do more in Dallas. But basically, as the national laws were coming out, individual states couldn't wait longer. I mean, the way the rulemaking process works, and that's why there's so much confusion, is that the SEC has to sort of take congressional instructions and then make very specific laws, which are very complicated, and which is what makes it difficult for the public to understand. So individual states pass their own laws. Texas happened to pass their Texas crowdfunding laws in 2014, which allowed Texas businesses to raise money to Texas investors. And that's really why we started in Houston. This is, I came in quite also. So, again, I'm just going to go through this quickly. If you have specific questions, I'm happy to discuss more afterwards. So there's really three, just think of the Jobs Act as three different types of laws. Right? There's Title II, Title III, Title IV. There was a Title I, which is a whole separate issue, but doesn't involve quote-unquote crowdfunding. So Title II is the same rules as there always was in the US, which was you can raise money privately to what's called accredited investors, which frankly just means rich people or rich companies. You have to be a millionaire or you have to make over $200,000 for 3 years. Title II allows you to conduct that type of offering online. Right? So if before literally a few months ago, if you heard of national crowdfunding, investment crowdfunding, it was all Title II. And it's really been real estate companies that's been driving that, and it's that industry is probably a couple $2 billion by now, which is, for the non-lawyers out there, it might not sound like much, but it's incredible because before this law, literally that meant if I'm a private company, I have to 1, find out who is basically rich, 2, build a general relationship with them. Like I can't just call up Joe and be like, hey Joe, I need money. I have to build a relationship with them, and then I can present them with an opportunity. So that goes away. That happened in 2013 of September, and that sort of started getting the public interested in what was called equity crowdfunding because that's kind of what people were doing at the time. 2015, a different element called Title IV passed. Title IV is different from Title II in the sense that you can do online offerings, but now you can accept money from everybody. Right? So you no longer have to be rich to invest in private companies. The issue with that is it's not an easy or cheap process for small businesses. Like I really call it as a mini IPO. You have to still basically prepare all these complicated documents and file it with the SEC, and roughly that basically means you got to spend at least $100,000 to $200,000 just on the legal documentation ready, necessary to do a such offering. So there's definitely a lot of movement here as well. But when you talk about small businesses, Main Street businesses, it's probably not a practical option. Which brings us to Title III, which is what we do. And this is, when Joe said we're the first crowdfunding, this is what we do. It's called regulation crowdfunding, because it is the truest form of what people think of crowdfunding, in which small businesses, or any businesses, can relatively easily list their offerings online, and anybody can come invest without such complicated or expensive process. So this law passed in May 2016, and NextSeed was the first crowdfunding portal, which is a new status that was created by this law. We're also the first SEC registered funding portal, and we closed this first ever regulation crowdfunding offering in U.S. history. It was an Austin-based boutique hostel. So think of, if you guys been to New York, Ace Hotel, these kind of new trends, like not the 1980s like European scary hostel, but a really sexy. You can pay cheap rates for your rooms, but there's a giant space for you to mingle in and have fun. And that, we'll get to that at a little point in terms of how the changing trends and demographics are really affecting this industry, and really why we developed our business the way we did. But long story short, this just means what you think of crowdfunding, right? You're a business, you want money, you can go to one of these portals that have the license to conduct these offerings, and then you can put it up, and anybody walking down the street can see it. You can talk about it generally, like I'm doing a crowdfunding offering. They can come and they can invest. The one thing, I'll go through this in more detail, maybe the question or the interview, but different portals have different requirements. So this process is not necessarily like Kickstarter, where you just put something up on your own. It's something where you have to go through a funding portal or a broker-dealer, right? So you are, in effect, applying to a third party, and you have to meet the standards of that party, or that company, or that portal, to be listed on that portal. And there's various reasons why that is the way it is, but that's something to keep in mind, depending on if you're looking for equity, depending on if you're looking for debt, if you're trying to go to an audience that's looking for tech companies, which is small businesses, or oil and gas companies, or whatever the case might be. But the way the industry is evolving, even in these first few months, is specialization into a certain type of product. So that brings me to what NextSeed is doing. So we want to help small businesses and retail investors. And by retail investors, I just basically mean anybody who might not have $1 million sitting aside. Because if you think about how you guys think of investments or savings or your future, it's really the stock market. Right? Like you literally, if you want to save or invest, you have the stock market. So what we wanted to do is create a platform where you can earn solid returns investing in local businesses. So not the stock market of some major company, but you see a coffee shop you like, you know a small business owner that you trust, and you can visit them and use their services. Because on the other side, the small business have a for the reasons I mentioned earlier, have a very serious problem. It's really hard to get financing, period. If you think about in the small business world, and I don't know what the background of the audience is, there's really two problems, and it's not just financing. Financing, like you get your money some way to open a new location or build a new building or build a new structure. But for small businesses, what we need to succeed is not just the product, right? You need people, no matter what. You need people to come, you need people to talk about you need people to support you and believe you. If you look at the most successful businesses out there, they do a really great job in marketing. I mean, GeniusDen is a perfect example. They have a specific business model, but the way they effectuate and they sort of deliver on that business model is by creating a community, just like this event. So what we try to do is create something that's very simple to use for you as an investor base, which is you can just navigate online potential deals, and it may interest you, it may not. The whole point is it's easy. You just click and you see. You kind of research and invest on your own. So it's no longer, let me trust some guy that says he's very smart or some guy that you think is smart and just saying, okay, here's my money, please manage it or please do something with it. We really want to give the power to you. And that's at the core of this. We think, we all know what we know. We know what we don't know. And we don't right now have a choice to make decisions based on that. But by creating a platform where you can actually see and research for yourself, we want to give an alternative solution, an alternative option. And then basically the third part is just tracking your investment. So it's not just like, I put my money somewhere and then maybe, 5 years from now something will happen and they'll send me a check. It's just, I put my money in somewhere and I'm seeing the returns every month. So this is more for the business owners. I guess for the investors as well. So we don't offer equity. Like I mentioned, different platforms have different specialization. So a lot of the portals that you see, whenever you hear equity crowdfunding, or if you see a tech company, chances are they're selling equity, which is exactly what I said. They're selling some percentage of their company to you as an investor, and the way you get paid is that there's a liquidity event, when there's an exit down the line where they basically have a massive cash infusion. For us, we are offering debt. So businesses literally make monthly payments just like they would in any type of loan situation, any type of finance situation. And the investors get paid what they were supposed to get paid based on the terms of the contract. So one is a term loan, which is a standard, any type like your mortgage or your car payment, right? Whatever the interest rate is of that loan product, over the term of the loan, you just get an equal payment every single month until you get paid and your principal off. The other product, which has been very interesting for us and gotten a lot of interest from business owners, it's called a revenue sharing loan. What that basically means is a business shares a percentage of your fixed percentage of your revenues until you pay back the total amount. So for example, there's an offering that we did that paid 1.5 multiples. So for every $100 you invest, you get paid $150 back in total over a set period of time by the business sharing a fixed percentage of the revenues. So that allows, for example, the business to have flexibility in how they pay. Right? So a lot of small businesses, especially if you have seasonality or cyclical cycles, cyclical nature, sometimes your revenues are high, sometimes your revenues are low. But because you're sharing a fixed percentage of that, you can kind of, your business grows as you grow, and your payments depend on the success of your business. On the other side, for investors, you can actually share in some ways the upside, because even though the total amount is fixed, if the business does well, you get paid quicker, so your investment rate goes up, and therefore you have an incentive to try to make that business successful. If I have an interest in a restaurant or a bar, if I want a beer, I want to go to the restaurant. I think all of us do. We want to tell our friends about it. We want to share it to the world. Frankly, it's fun. The fun part, I don't want to downplay because it is a very serious process and very common. It is real money. But the way that we try to make it more manageable is by also reducing the minimum investment size. So on a platform, you can invest as low as $100. That's the power of the platform. And this is the interesting part that we've seen. We've been operating, we started the business 2 years ago. We officially launched our Texas platform last year. We launched our national platform a few months ago, so we have about 1.5 years of data points. Our fan base is growing quickly. By that I mean just unique visitors, a typical startup internet metrics. But what was really interesting, which perhaps should have been obvious, but in the beginning we didn't think of that way, is that it's really millennials that are driving our growth. Nearly half, I think more than half at this point, are millennials. And they participate and they tell us based on their feedback, because it's something different, right? Like we have and I think basically, even if we're not technically millennials here, I think we kind of think of millennials, we think like millennials if we're here. Because we want to enjoy the process of living, right? We don't necessarily want to do something now for the next 30 years and then see what happens. We want every day to count. We want what we do, what we spend our money on, what we invest our money on to count. So people love the idea of investing in something tangible local. And that's the other part of the early adopters as well as the business side. When people come and they see what it's about, they get it. So it might take some time, just like it might take you guys or anybody to understand what crowdfunding is and what NextSeed is. Once you see it, we think people will like what they do and what they see and they'll come back. So this is just a case study that we did. One of our early deals was in Houston. If you guys have been to Houston, you should check out this restaurant called Peli Peli. It's a South African restaurant with a couple locations, one in the Galleria. They're top 5 rated in TripAdvisors and Yelp. So they raised $358,000 for 127 individuals over 42 days. So during the campaign, they had 13,000 views for over a minute and a half. They were covered in different locations, look at different press, different blogs that we generate. Using just standard marketing analogy or sort of metrics to over $10,000 worth of data. So if you think about a restaurant, you spend so much money on marketing. Right? Google, whatever, everybody's trying to hit you up for marketing, PR. So for them to have 13,000 people in the Houston area to look at their offering page and look at it and review it, so thinking about it from an investment side for a minute and a half, they love that engagement. Some people invested, some people didn't, obviously. But at the same time, people were sort of diligencing that business by even going to the restaurant, checking out the food, telling their friends about it. So that interaction is what I mean about crowdfunding. That's what makes it unique. It's not just about the money. It's the process of engaging with their community to an audience that you may or may not want, but you're testing that out. You're sort of sharing your story to find your loyal fans. I'll go through the website now, but just some additional examples so you kind of get a sense of what our platform does. This was a new gastro lounge concept started by a few sort of established entrepreneurs in Houston. They raised over $440,000 from 134 different people over 70 days. It's literally, you guys know Houston, it's across the Highway 59, the George R. Brown Center, so in East Downtown, which is an up-and-coming area of Houston, similar to this area in Dallas, and they allowed the team to sort of start building a business so that we opened before Super Bowl. And for a lot of investors, again, it was a chance to get in, a small business concept, which obviously they otherwise wouldn't have been able to do, because even if you're legally allowed to do it from the business owners, they can't take $100 investments, right? Like, you need a lot of money for it to be worth it while to do the paperwork, things like that. But through this platform, a lot of people got engaged, and really this business was the one that, in some sense, helped us connect with the community. This is called Brewer's Table. It's a new concept coming in Austin, started by a very popular beer professional or celebrity in Austin. They raised $300,000 from 190 investors. And this was the hospital deal that I mentioned. This is the first ever regulation crowdfunding offering in the US. They raised close to $400,000 from 227 investors. So you'll notice it's not small amounts, right? We're not doing the $25,000 food trucks, although we definitely consider those on a case-by-case basis. There's a few reasons. One is we're trying to educate the public as much as we're trying to actually complete deals with the public. This is not just for us. I mean, my team, my colleague Kira is here. Our team didn't do this because we thought this was just a cool idea that we wanted to experiment. We think there's something fundamental happening in our generation, the way the financial systems work, the way we think about money and investments. And we really want to build a good foundation. So we are trying to work with established business owners so that you, the public, know that it's not just a pipe in the sky. It's established, real entrepreneurs doing real things. And frankly, we want investors to make money much more often than not. Right? We don't want this to be like an equities profiting type where by definition you're going to lose money 90% of the time. We want this to be a true alternative product where you can potentially and hopefully rely on to consider as a different investment option. So I'll just go real quick. So this is our website, and I think we're really on this side. So I'm using the super high-tech Bluetooth mouse. This is our website, www.nextseed.co. Please check it out when you have time. So we've completed over $2.1 million of debt crowdfunding since we started. Our business is last May. And actually we just lost a second of today. So if you look at this, this is our track record. So you kind of test out by seeing what it was. This was the first ever deal we did, which was a hair salon in Houston. They raised $25,000 on a term loan. They paid everything back, the revenue sharing, but they paid everything back in less than a year. Effective return was, I think, about 7.5%. We've done a snoring center, which is if you have sleeping and snoring problems, you can check them out, and they'll do a 15-minute procedure and you're